Hello, hello. Happy Sunday and welcome back to the UpSet podcast. We're so happy that you tuned in this Sunday evening. And when I say we're, I'm talking about the most effervescent crew in all the land. Where are my friends? There they are. Hey, guys.
She just called us Alka-Seltzer.
I was like, let's look up that word. She's tally number 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
No
We
one
go
tally on us.
We're doing number 2 definition tally. You know, vivacious, not the bubbles. Giving off bubbles and stuff. How's everybody doing this week?
Oh,
Doing
good,
well.
good.
Or how was your week?
Glad to see the Brady Bunch back. All are present.
We're all here. We're all here.
Get excited.
Hello to our viewers and listeners out there. Say good evening to us. We're happy to see you. Please don't forget to share this if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook right now. We're live. Okay, what was that, GP? Were you saying something?
No, I didn't say anything.
No, I was the one that was saying it. My voice is a little deep now, like GP, so you're gonna hear a little bit from me today because I sound a little bit like GP.
I was trying to take your position, GP. He's trying to take the group.
I was trying to tell Tally, go get Marlena, talking about the bunches together. When she took hiatus yesterday, last week, burying people.
Just one.
Tiffany.
Just one.
Well, she looks bright and revived. So it's good to see you back, Marlene.
Thank you.
Hey, Tip.
Hey, Tip.
Yes, indeed.
I'm waiting for all these Eagles fans to talk about what happened last night.
Well, I mean,
did they win? I haven't heard any news.
I'm not sure because I'm in prayer on Saturday night.
Yes,
what happened?
They won.
Sure,
royally. Royally.
Yes, yeah. That's all I
so
the frivolities of life normally pass me by, but I'm grateful. Is that a baseball team? What is that?
Good try, Tyler.
They that wait upon the Lord shall
renew their strength.
Yes.
They shall mount
up.
It looks very good.
As Eagles. You think they're going to the Super Bowl?
I think so.
It's looking like it.
For those who have an adoration and an affection for a certain team out toward the western area of the country, the Bible says that you should look only to a star in the east, not one.
I love how you're using the Bible to.
Yes, you have to.
They're going to cast down the show.
Hello, Gamal. Thanks for joining.
Hey, there's the bishop there.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Elder, Allegheny East has some openings.
Justin has taken prerogatives.
He's the bishop now. He's got his own church, so he's recruiting.
Yes.
Yeah, that boy Gamal could preach, though.
Oh, he can.
Yep.
That boy could preach.
Yes.
No, Marlene, I saw you out. Your team back out. Was it Philadelphia? Yeah, you guys were out.
We were in Kensington taking care of the homeless and giving gifts and food yesterday, and wonderful experience. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was tough out there in Kensington. I took my youth, my teenagers out there because I wanted them to see,
right.
One wrong turn, can cause this kind of life, so.
For those who have never seen it, they cannot imagine what that. It is a literal hellscape.
Yes.
And,
And too, Tally, I know you probably know the mayor. I don't know what's going on down there. Trash all over the streets, and it looks like a God-forsaken place. That's what it looks like. And it's extremely sad. And people were strung out. I mean, the young people saw folks shooting up, and they had to see it. And so, no, I didn't take the police up. We had somebody greater, Jesus.
Yeah.
The real fact is that it's hard to do ministry in an area like that if you are accompanied by the police. And
well, the police were out there. They were certainly keeping law and orders. Like so many police cars were just throughout the area. I think we covered like maybe 3 blocks of Kensington Avenue. And we started at the little park right there and took care of them. And then we went down the street because we were giving out food and coats and blankets and hoodies and socks. We gave out those things as well as food. Yeah, it's things that we thought they would need. And and it was an experience. I mean, to see people just laid out on the sidewalk, just dazed on drugs. It was so sad. So sad.
Sobering.
Yeah. So But anyway, it
Y'all
was good
fun?
ministry.
Thanks for tuning in. Fernanda said that was the first time that she's watched the football since Colin Kaepernick. Good time to
Okay.
watch the game. So it must have been. I didn't see it, but I know it was a good game. So Pat, I know you were somewhere exciting yesterday.
Are you guys? Are you teasing about the Giants, or can we get into something else now? Are we into something else?
No,
There's
we're
nothing to
talking about where
tease.
you were yesterday morning.
Yeah, I'm looking at Tally and Chuck's face, and I think we need to pray again before we come back out.
It's all right. It's okay, New York.
Well, to tell you the truth, the Haitian Federation just took Sabbath by storm. And it's been 3 years since they've been together, and they always begin the year with their worship service, bringing everyone together, and then they meet again Easter weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But this I've never seen, and I've been doing this for like 10 years. And
where was it?
It was at a place called
was it Benjamin Rush?
That's it. Thank you.
Academy.
Yes,
Philadelphia.
Academy. They had it out there, and literally they had to turn back Philly people.
Really? Wow.
That's how many people showed up. Over 500.
Wow.
The music was high. The preacher stole a sermon from somewhere, and it was just on 10.
It must have been a preacher we're looking at right now.
What kind of shoes did he wear?
Now those were not those. Those were Pathfinder shoes. So
you got to get a pair of holy Pathfinder shoes now.
That's what I'm gonna have to do. One with wings. You're right about that. But it was awesome. And what I'm praying for is that the other federations will see how they began and take notes. It was just awesome. I'm still on a high.
I'm embarrassed and ashamed that as an African American, I failed to understand or appreciate the importance that Haiti plays in the development of this hemisphere and this nation, and that for so many Black people, we have failed to value our people in Haiti, and even to the extent many thinking that they have deserved certain things that have occurred because of certain religious perspectives that we bring. And we need to better understand our Haitian brothers and sisters and their history.
That's true. Right. That's true. That's true. Anything else, Charles? I know you have something in the news that we missed.
Oh, there's a lot. I could make a show out of mine.
Yeah, I thought he was going straight to Bible.
Again,
but go ahead.
You know, the tragedy out in California again.
Yeah.
Again. It's a very violent country.
It is.
I understand along the lines of that. Some states are managing to outlaw the automatic rifles. I forget the state most recently passed a ban on the automatic rifles. But it looks like it's going to have to be a state by state thing. You know, your individual states are going to have to say, okay, we ban certain weapons, you know,
right.
You come across our state line, you better not have whatever weapon we've banned with you.
Sure.
So, you know, so our states need to, you know, get on the ball and do what is, you know, do what's right. But
you got to get the right state leader.
The last report I got was 10 dead.
Yeah.
Yep.
10 injured.
And 10 injured. And they could turn into deaths. And I understand the guy is still at large.
Yeah.
They got this van cornered.
I think they say they know who he is now. But
yeah.
But you know, we'll wait to see what the outcome is.
Right. So true. Oh, and Tiffany, thanks for reminding us. Last week we were talking about the fact that the PFA choir was going to perform at the Kimmel Center. That was on Monday, Martin Luther King Day. And my understanding is they did a phenomenal job, represented very well.
Yay.
So we're proud of the choir. Don't forget to vote.
Oh, it's we still have time.
It's still open. I think it's February. I forgot the date that it closes. I think it's like February 2nd, if I'm not mistaken. So there's still time to vote for the Image Awards. All of that information is on our website and our social media. So you should be able to find it. It's a quick vote and you're done. But I think PFA could pull out a win if we show up
Yep.
and we know how to do it.
Oh, you see our big fan Rodney Grissom is on,
Hey,
Pastor.
Pastor Gris.
Yeah, we
Pastor
just
Gris is with us.
still praying for you. The funeral that just passed. We're
February
still praying
10th.
for you.
Yeah.
Still
Thanks,
praying.
Tiff. February 10th. You have until February 10th
Okay.
to vote and use multiple different email addresses because I think there's only one vote per email. So let's get out and vote. All right, guys. Well, we covered a lot here in our opening here, but we're anxious to get to our topic because we know it's one that we're hearing people talk about in their individual circles. Our churches are grappling with this topic, and it's one of great concern for the future of our church. And GP, go ahead and tell the people what we're talking about this evening.
Yeah, as mentioned, this is not a new conversation. As a matter of fact, some folks are tired of this conversation. And, you know, we've seen panel discussions and programs addressing this question. And who knows, we might already have the answer and we just need to implement. But we're going to bring that question back again because it's important to us. And that question is why? Why are our young people and millennials, Gen Z, why are they leaving the church in droves? What is going wrong? Are we to blame? Are they to blame? So that's what we're going to unwrap tonight. So we're going to have a good time because I know that our fearless youth director already has all the answers.
Every
So
last one.
I'm just going to shut up and listen. But that's the question we're unpacking tonight. Why are young people leaving the church? So question number one, from your perspective, upsetters, why are millennials and Gen Z still leaving?
Yeah.
I'm surprised the youth director didn't start off answering that. I'm glad the elections have passed because
I mean,
And he has the answer.
4 more years. So I'll sit around and wait on it. I can say this without even answering. I like GP that you said still. Why are they still? Because it's something that that didn't just happen. It's always been this way. And we know, and we'll talk about it at the end or a continuum. We know how to stop the bleeding. We just haven't stopped the bleeding.
Do we really know how?
I was
I
about
mean,
to
that's
say,
an
do we
interesting
Yeah, I don't know, Pat.
assertion there. I mean, do we really know how to, because it is the nature of young people to express their freedom and growth
True.
by separating from that which gave them birth. I mean, that is, the Amish have this thing called rumspringa, which is when the Amish young people are allowed an opportunity to go out into the world and to, just experience it. And it seems to be a natural course of events that young people test the borders of their existence. So when you say we know how to, tell me what that is. What is
Well,
that?
he's talking about question number 3 that we're going to get to. The answers.
Okay.
So just wait a little while. We'll get there. But I do want to acknowledge that this has been a problem that's been going on for a very long time, a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. We're not new to this. We know what's going on. But
Since
some
Cain
people
and Abel.
believe that the pandemic has given them the perfect opportunity, this perfect springboard to jump out of church, to leave for good. Do you think that the pandemic helped the situation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that, I think there are a lot of mitigating circumstances, but certainly the pandemic was one of them in a very forceful way. But, and I'm sure we'll unpack a lot of this, but, the church has known for years that this was happening.
Right.
And we observe the symptoms of a larger problem. And sometimes folk just say, well, you know, they lost their way, they got
They'll
the
come
devil
back.
in them, you
Mhm.
know, all those things. But I personally believe it needs to go to the very top of our church organizations.
Mm.
We don't want to talk about it on that level because it means releasing some constraints that we have had over our membership for decades.
Mm.
So you're talking about deep diving into the psychology of our church doctrine, how we punish people, how we shame them. These are all factors that I think a lot of young people they've been pent up about. And when the pandemic came along, it was like, oof, I got a little relief here.
Yeah.
And many that I have talked to have absolutely no desire to leave Jesus
That's
or
right.
leave
Right.
God.
That's right.
Mhm.
They sincerely, now some will say
That's what
that, but
Tiffany
they,
just
you
wrote.
know,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I think we have a large issue right here. And until we find the cause, it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I might add on to that, Chuck, because I'm around a lot of young adults, and in trying to love many of them back into the church, we not should it be addressed at a higher level, but certainly at the level where we are, and
Absolutely.
certainly you have to change the culture of the church, because the older saints think that this attitude of judgment is exactly what is needed to lead them back to Christ, right?
Mhm.
Which, judgment is not the way you lead people. Love is what brings people in, and that's it. That love is what brings people in. And I met young people that I'm trying to, under our current administration, just trying to get many to come back. And they're like, Pastor, some stuff that was done to me, just what I hear
Mhm.
over the years. And is, as you stated, Chuck, how we have corrected people who have fallen, and they remember that pain, and they find it to be too restrictive, too judgmental, too condemning, and we have not shown young people grace. Because even if it was not done to them, it was done to somebody they knew, somebody that was close to them, and we've messed up. But the best way to change is where we are, and it's up for us pastors to make sure that our church embraces you. Because like right now I'm trying to prepare my church. We're making this the year of the youth, right? And so I said, they're not going to come back the way we are. We got to change, because I mean, they've got LGBTQ plus friends. Some of them are, and amongst a whole lot of stuff. I mean, that's
Some
just
of the
one
adults
sin, but
are.
yeah. But
Yeah.
right. But I'm saying the church has to embrace them with love, and whatever their condition is, I just said that because people just think that's the most repulsive.
Yeah.
But the church has to change its attitude of, you can only come here if you're saved already, versus, Jesus mingled with those, and as they followed him, then they came in the way they were, and then over time they changed. And so we have to change where we are.
Yeah, I think another thing is the politics. We have to factor in young people have different politics now. We want them to get involved and vote and all of that, and some of them have some very harsh convictions that maybe the church does not support. So there's the political part of that as well. When I was coming up as a young Adventist, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was the only Adventist in my family, and kind of got mocked at, for having to go to church on Saturday. Everybody in my neighborhood thought that was weird. While they had the cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons blaring in their on their televisions, I was heading out to church. But there was one word as I grew into the church right there in North Philly. That's where I was baptized, at the North Philadelphia church. I kept hearing, in conversation and sometimes in sermons, this word converted.
Mm-hmm.
And I bristled at that because they used the word to shame those who weren't towing the line. Oh, you're not converted.
Mm-hmm.
That's your problem. You're not converted. And so as a young person, I had to really fight with that because when they categorized some of us as unconverted, it's like we were lepers or something, they're unconverted,
Right.
they're going to do with them
Unclean, yeah.
kind of thing. So yeah, for me, that it was tough, but it was pent up. I never complained, but I was feeling it a lot. And I think our young people are feeling a lot, but may not be talking about it. When the pandemic came along, I said, "Whoop, I'm out of here."
Yeah,
I can come on a Zoom, turn off my camera, or not, So I think that was a catalyst to what is happening now, even to a greater extent.
Yeah, and I think we're talking about different, because we talk about youth and young adults and we kind of lump them all together. I saw Tiffany mention, millennials are like 40 now. So
you got mortgages.
Yeah, these are not kids just hanging out on the street, having a good old time. These are people who make intelligent decisions for themselves and their families, and they've also made what they consider intelligent decisions about how they want to do church now. And we have to realize, I think sometimes we overlook those type of generational characteristics that we hear about. The boomers, I hear the boomers talk about, hey, we went to church because our parents told us we were going to church. There was no question about it. Like, you just follow the pastor and you follow what your parents say. That's it. No questions asked. And we're a generation now where, no, we want to know why we're doing that, or why is that taking place? And if we don't get the answers that we feel we need, we feel like we don't have to be there. We can find spaces, other places, or we don't need church to get what we need spiritually. That's the kind of the concept I'm hearing a lot. And Rodney brought up something too about authenticity. And that was another thing, in terms of, you don't ask questions. You see strange things happening in church, we don't talk about that. And that doesn't fly for a lot of people now. They want to call things out. If they see something wrong going on, they want it to be addressed. They want to have the conversations that were too taboo when we were growing up to have in church. If church is supposed to be the thing that's helping you shape your life, why can't we talk about the things that are actually happening in our lives at church? And so these kind of, we come to church and we act like we're holy and everything, but we don't want to talk about anything that's happening outside of the church walls, which is really impacting young people. And I think they're getting tired of that. They want church to be a place where they can be themselves and talk about what's really happening in their lives.
So thank you so much, Tasha, for highlighting the differences of the generations who are young. So I saw Gamal Alexander's comment about a teen's sentiments about not believing in God, believing that science does not support the Bible, that sexuality is fluid, and they only go to church because they have to for now. Right. So this is the mindset of a lot of those who are part of the Gen Z generation. Right. I'm going to jump to the question number 5. So research has shown us that every generation is a little less spiritual than the previous generation. Now, is this because of the increased secularization of the world, society, or is it just they've had enough with our hypocrisy and they just want to explore other options?
I would challenge that research. I mean, where, if I might ask, just where does it come from?
Yeah, this was Lifeway research. They do research on church and generations, and they have discovered that every generation is a little less spiritually institutional, a little less.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So
maybe I said it wrong. Yeah.
Are they a little less religious and church attending, or are they a little less spiritual?
Yes.
Okay.
Religious, spiritual, like spiritually indoctrinated, loyal to the church. That's what I meant to say. I'm sorry.
Okay, got you. Okay,
because I couldn't know how can you judge a person's spirituality?
Oh, no. Yeah. Because going to church does not mean that
You're spiritual.
spiritual or not, so.
You know, Chuck, I go both ways.
Really?
You
Yeah,
muted.
first you have to unmute your mic.
And so it's even better when you take it off mute. So
Don't listen to Tally. Oh my goodness.
I go both ways with this because and I'm talking about Chuck because yes, there's a hierarchy to it, but there's also the responsibility of clergy to allow or to be at a place where churches need to pivot, and they're not pivoting. They weren't pivoting in the 80s. They were not pivoting in the 90s. They were not pivoting in the 2000s. So the thing is that in youth ministries, which in our church need to be split up, okay, in our church needs to be split up. There's children, there's youth, there's young adults. Young adults in the 70s were already in church doing what they're supposed to be, what they're not, I wouldn't say supposed to be doing, but what their responsibilities are in church as young adults. We saw the decline happening coming out of the 80s. The church did not pivot. Let me go to that, what you were saying, GP, and I'll tell you where I'm getting this piece from, is that clergy is not addressing secular life. They're not addressing it from the pulpit. And so if they're not addressing it from the pulpit, they're not addressing it in teaching either. Teaching is not coming from the pulpit itself. There are other ways to do that. And our young people simply don't want to come to a church for you to tell them what to do. They'd rather be at a church community or fellowship and share. This is where the problem is coming in. So we have not pivoted yet with doing that. You see some of our non-denominational. Can I, producer? Can I talk about non-denominational churches?
You sure can.
Sure.
So
You're seeing some of our non-denominational churches pivot to the point where they're not even preaching anymore. They're moving to community services. They're moving to fellowshipping together. They're moving to oikos, being at each other's homes and zip coding with each other. We just have not pivoted yet, and we need to.
Well,
so there's a comment here. Sorry, Chuck, about teens burning sage, collecting their energy crystals. So a lot of our even Black people of faith are exploring other avenues of faith, whether it's African, whether it's Buddhist. And a lot of us don't really pay attention to this. We just think that Black people are naturally more spiritually inclined and that's just a white people thing. But some of our own kids are exploring these various avenues and variations of spirituality. So why don't we really talk about it or address it, or have we given up already?
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. It's just talking about it. I feel like at church, we're just afraid to have any conversations that.
And why is that?
It's like if we talk about it, then we're condoning it or we're advocating it. And it's like, no, that's not the same thing. I remember growing up, my favorite times at church were when we had youth group. And we could just talk about any subject. We could talk about dating. We could talk about whether you should hold hands. And we're like, wow, we could talk about this in a safe place at church and we're not being judged. And it felt like, okay, this is a place where I can belong. But now it's like you bring up these topics and, oh, that stuff is of the devil. Don't bring it in here. We don't talk about those things. It's like, come on, this is what they want to know about. We're the ones who can help them through it. Why do we ignore these topics? We have to get out of that mindset that if it's not what we believe, then we can't talk about it.
Can I just hit Tiffany really quick where she says, are clergy educated enough on these topics to address these topics? And I'm sure I'm thinking she may be coming from a standpoint of higher education. When I was in youth ministries in 99, 2000, it's more than archaic now when I look at what they taught us about youth ministry then. When I say archaic, if I brought out some of the books now, matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I threw out those books because they can't even stand.
No longer relevant.
They're not even relevant right now.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is You need clergy and leadership to be connected to youth. There's a connection that's missing, that has nothing to do with the pulpit. So not to be educated, much less than to connect with them, to hear what it is that they have to say and implement the change, or find some way to implement the change without you being worried that that tithe is not going to come in, or worried that they're going to move you, or something of that nature. I think clergy need to connect themselves, along with leadership, elders, etc., to young people, in order, and I made a mistake in the beginning, not to stop the bleeding, but to stall it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be the clergy leading out in these efforts. You can delegate. It just has to be a priority of the leadership to make sure it's happening, because you can find, if you don't really know what's vaping, what's vaping. I hear kids talking about, I don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to talk about it. No, find somebody who knows about vaping, so that can be a conversation that you facilitate and can kind of help shape the narrative in an environment where you're the ones educating, instead of them finding their education on social media and within their peer groups. I think in educating ourselves is not just about school, it's about being familiar with what's happening in the youth, not just the young people, but even the millennials. What are we as 40-year-olds dealing with right now that the church can help us with? Like, we don't want to come to church just about God. We want to know how that can be a part of our holistic living and how it can be incorporated in all aspects.
I hear you. Help me to be a better parent.
Yes.
To better manage my real estate portfolio.
Right.
Oh,
I can find spirituality at home online and watch whoever I want to watch on any given day and grow spiritually.
Right.
Yeah, I think that many during these last 3 years, transitioning out of physically going to the church, some have discovered something that we should be teaching, and that is, we are the church. Not the building, not the denomination. We, individuals, we are the church. Some are discovering by default, because they still have a strong spiritual connection, they realize now they don't have the luxury of going to their church, going to Sabbath school, whatever, but they still have to be the church as an individual. I can go so many ways with this, but during World War II, hundreds of churches were destroyed, bombed, flattened. And these folk in those countries and in those communities had nowhere to go physically, but they still maintained that they were the church, because they were the church and not the building. And so some young people are saying, if I still have a spiritual connection with God and I still know what he wants me to do and how to live, I can do that without brick and mortar.
True.
And that's what happened with the pandemic. Let's be honest now. The pandemic was a confirmation about how they already felt, which the pandemic then became permission for them to go ahead and act on how they already felt. So let's go home. Let's talk about AEC. Can we stay home? Can we stay home?
Talk about it.
Federations were dying 15 years ago. All right. We've had one federation that didn't operate since 1993. Come on, think it through now. You telling me, out of how many pastors in one area, nobody stepped up and said, let's get our area rolling. Let's push towards getting this rolling. But yet, on the flip side of it, you see churches being built. You see pews being built.
Still,
you see vans and buses being bought, but no youth federation. I've heard pastors use the term coming out of MV, even out of the 90s, that AYS is dead. I've seen a funeral coming out of Tennessee where the church had a funeral for AY.
Wow, that's a little
right.
much.
No, but you see, nobody acted on what do you do after that. Let me stab a little bit here. The churches are following hierarchy And what the hierarchy is really doing is they're being, come on, help me guys with this, not proactive, but
Reactive.
they're being reactive, right? I'm sorry. And then what we do with that, we follow those with the big cash and do what they say. That is the mistake. Go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think the industrial complex has a major role.
Oh, definitely.
The religious, our priorities, we become a business.
Yep.
It's important to have warm bodies in the pew because that helps the industrial complex. There are some things that I have observed, not just in the Adventist church, maybe a little less in the Adventist church, or I should say not as overt, but in many other churches. I mean, tons of money is spent on how church looks, what kind of carpet.
Yeah.
I mean, we just get into that. And I'm not saying that the church should not be a beautiful place to worship for people to worship, but sometimes we can be excessive. And so we are spending money in areas that we could be focusing on ministries and solutions to keep not just the young people, but everybody. And you have to keep in mind, now we say the pandemic because everybody had gone online and you watch services online, but even that is not new. 700 Club, PTL,
right,
Trinity Broadcast Network, 3ABM.
Chuck, let's talk about a pivot really quick, and then I'm gonna leave this alone. There's a church about 20 miles away from here. I'll say it. It's in the Chesapeake Conference, and that church is jam packed every Sabbath with millennials. The reason why it is that way is because they're bringing their children, their teens, and they're coming there and they are focusing on just them to the point where they have a coffee shop. They call it another name. There's a coffee shop inside.
Oh, I hope they don't call it a post-up shop.
No, but after Sabbath school, which I'm sure they don't call it Sabbath school. See, I don't have a problem with not having AY. You can call it fireside chat. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Just get out of the institution of it and have a relationship with these young people. Those young people are dying to get to church in order for them to meet their friends after Sabbath school at the coffee shop before 11 o'clock worship hour. They are not suited up. They're dressed down. A guy next to you could have a tie on. The other one is in a leather suit. The other one is in his polo. I'm just saying we have not pivoted. I don't know what pivoting is for. I think it should be different in every environment, but we still have to pivot. We have not done that.
One of the things I take note of is that in all of this conversation, none of us have referred to any kind of biblical sourcing for what we need to do to bring young people back to church. And that's because it's not there.
It's not there.
I mean, the idea of, I'm trying to think of the apostolic coffee house, where Peter's saying, look, we're going to be casting out demons at 4 o'clock. And then 5, we want all of you young people to come on in. We're going to have some postum for you and just kick it with you. Find out what's on your head, young people. I'm wondering sometimes if the real focus is, or the real problem is that what someone said earlier, that the church has lost its own authenticity and identity as the called out people of God, to the extent that it loses relevance for young people as well. Somebody once said one of the reasons young people are leaving the church is because they're looking for their parents who left last week. But I wonder about that. I mean, young people need to be socialized and all, but I'm wondering if at times the church tries to be more than it can be or should be.
Well, let me ask this question. What are some things that we can do, best ways, best practices to engage those who are leaving in droves? What can we do?
Well, I see, when I look at Jesus's ministry, it was about meeting needs. Okay. So first we have to assess, what are your needs? Build relationship. I think we concentrate so much on getting them back into the church walls, but that's not what we're really trying to do. We're trying to build a relationship with them so that we can really meet the needs that they have and that's the first step, because that's what we should really care about, their heart and what's going on with them. I was listening to a discussion with some young people, and one of the guys said, you care about me for the few minutes that I'm in the church, but when I step outside of the church, am I of any interest to you still? Like, do you care what happens to me when I go down the street and, you know, such and such happens? And it's like, yeah, we're so narrow-minded in what we feel we can provide to our young people, just within those few hours that we have in the church, that we're not thinking outside of the box. So I think we should ask them, what do you need? What are some of the things we can do? Even those life groups, I know, I think I saw Tiffany ask, I've heard a lot of churches saying that's the one thing that's keeping their churches going, is the life groups that they form, or small groups, which is pretty much small groups that focus on specific interests. Because one thing about our church is we know everybody doesn't need the same thing. And so we can create pockets throughout the church where those who want to know about how to have a stronger relationship with Christ, those who want to know about how to get more financially stable so they can give more to the cause, you know, have those spaces. But we have to ask people first, what is it that you need? And then we can start meeting those needs.
And I do want to piggyback what Tosh is saying, because everyone just wants love and acceptance. They want to be accepted the way they are, whatever their thought mentality is. And they do want to know a God that is concerned about them, their lifestyle, you know, the way that they live. And that's why I strongly believe that, you know, because these are not new. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. So it's not like this is the first time that young people, young adults, or whomever have become disinterested in the church. You know, we just have to keep reaching out, keep loving them. And I like what Chuck said, not just to youth, young adults, but to all people. We have to make sure that we are a church that's really inclusive and not exclusive. And when we show people that we're inclusive, we love them the way they are, I think we'll see an influx of people coming back. Now, there's that curiosity, you know, with some people as to what's happening in the world. I mean, many of us left church for a season or whatever, you know, but happened to come back. And so they just want to know that when they come back, you receive me, you know, it's not, you don't put me in a back room to worship while you're in the sanctuary, you know. And so I think that's strong. It must be Christ's method of love. That's what's going to bring it.
I never left. Well, that's because I didn't join until I was 16. I hadn't even heard of it.
So I see Benjamin Brooks.
Yeah, Ben was threatening with the question.
Yeah, man.
He's talking about what we do, and you know, why we keep repeating the same pattern. We don't really know how to close chapters of certain churches if they're not being effective. We just want to keep it going until everyone is dead, and then we sell the building. But what if we were more intentional about transitioning and being more intentional with our resources to better reach those who we are losing?
That young Ben Brooks.
And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm just going to be straight.
Yeah,
We know what's wrong. We know.
Of course we know what's wrong.
We have, you know, and we said, well, you know, what's going on? We need to sit down and talk to the kids and see what's going on. You know, right now we have so many other channels that they could turn to.
Right.
Social network, you know, themselves. They can turn to those channels. They can literally just click
Their
off.
pastors are on TikTok.
The church.
They're good.
Correct.
Listen.
But you know, I heard a social scientist say something, and you know, in one of my archive, he said, if you know something, and GP, I think you would appreciate this. He says, if you know something and don't do something, then you don't know anything.
Ooh.
GP. Yeah. Okay.
Knowing, in other words, knowing is doing.
You know, Ben, I know him, and and one of the things that I think is important for us to recognize is that you need to invest in your foundation. And let me take this opportunity to say, if you're building buildings and you are not putting funds into children and youth, community services, remember, that's where we are. Social justice, that's where we are right now. right? That's beyond the walls. If we continue to build the walls, we're gonna continue to lose our young people. And remember, when I say young people, get out of your mind teens, because they have parents.
Right.
Right.
We're talking about 30, 35, 40.
Folks my age.
If your age, that's right, Tally.
And
Only in your
some
dreams.
even older.
When you start looking at the Sabbath school lesson that start talking about tithe, they'll accept it.
But they're not concerned about that. Yeah.
No.
You think they are?
Let me tell you what I believe they're concerned about. They're concerned about how can we keep the principle there of the Bible and change the man side of it. All right, it's quiet now, but so when they don't get that,
I don't know what you mean, Justin. I don't know what that meant.
So in other words, we understand the biblical principle of tithing. Some people may have a problem with what the storehouse might be, or how we divide it as far as the storehouse might be. And when there's no answers coming back at Sabbath school, they leave again. You see what I'm saying? So we set up these institutions for them, but we don't act on it. So for example, when you look at camp meeting is going to die one day. And it's going to die one day because the generation.
Ichabod.
Blasphemous.
I still like camp meeting. I still like it.
But Marlena, I'm 52 years old. When you look at that people who come to camp, they're saying, when you talk about young people that come to camp and you put them under a tent and it's 101 degrees outside.
Tiffany, stop. I'm sorry.
No, no, but you understand what I'm saying? It's so yet we are building other things, but we're not investing in young people. I dare say, what is the budget of youth and children out of $32 million or 30 something million dollars? What is the budget that you invest in young people? I'm not putting an answer out there. I just want to figure what that is.
And Pat, honestly, sometimes we're looking at budgets and that kind of stuff holds us back, but it doesn't even take a board. It doesn't take the pastor. It takes a couple of members who take an interest in young people.
That's right.
Who pull them aside, have a conversation with them, who say, oh, I'm having a get together at my house. I think sometimes when we look at youth ministry, we're looking at it from what is the church putting out? Yeah. It's like you can be a youth minister. You see a need. I mean, I have young girls. I see the need. You know what I mean? So if you are a person who has a passion for young people, you don't have to always look at the church to say, why aren't you guys doing? Say, this is what I can do. I can be a friend to a young person. I can invite young people to my house. Because it's all about that connection. Yeah. And you could be that conduit that leads them back to church, where you're that person that they connect with when they come inside those doors because of the relationships you've built with them outside. I'll just give this one little testimony. My daughters recently started going to the youth Sabbath school at church. And the highlight for this Sabbath school for them is when the leaders ask, what was the highlight of your week and what was the low point of your week? Why is that important to them? Because it shows that you care what's happening to me and my life. True. You know, so it's like I took so much from that. Like, okay, this is what they need right now. They need to know that people care. Yes. And that once they know you care, we heard the saying, once they know you care, they'll listen to anything you have to say. I mean, come on.
There's something in the chat. I think we need to. No. Let her. Let her pick up the one. Are you going to step up to Germantown's new youth leader? Okay.
Okay. Listen, I do want to say, because
pray about it.
Is exactly straight with Tasha saying. I was a AY leader for 10 years, and you don't have to have a whole bunch of money. The kids just really, and when I say young adults, they just really want to hang out, come together, talk, talk about their issues. Listen, without you judging them, you can't, because they're going to tell you stuff and you got to act like, okay, all right. You can't like, oh my God, what in the world? They can't act like that. I remember.
Marlena, let me stop you there for a second. Remember now, when we're looking at age groups, specifically when I talked about camp meeting, I wasn't talking about teenagers. I'm talking about 30, 35, 40-year-olds who's not going to go to the pavilion who's gonna, those are the ones that I'm saying, see, and that's why we're so far apart when it comes to the age groups.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that saying, why are we spending money on this? Those are the ones who are saying, my tithe money goes to this for a 10-day party. Those are the ones who I'm talking about. So I do understand what Tasha is saying, what Marlena is saying, but there's still a foundational
But Pat, I want to say that that's a concern, but that's not why they leave church. I mean, they might say, yeah, we're wasting money, but that's not anything that's going to make a person really leave church because they feel like, camp meeting is a waste of time and resources. It is really a lack of relationship and that not seeing that the church is relevant for them and their family. And so when we are not showing them that we care and we're having stuff for them, whether they can come and be a part and accept them and their families and understand how God relates to them and how they live today and not, stuff from 1,000 years ago. Those are the things that they concern. How does Jesus help me today? What is that that's going to help me? And they want a church that receives them.
A few minutes ago, Ben put something out there and said to me to talk about my experience as a young person in the church. As I said before, I came into the church right off the street. When I came into the church, I came to the same church that Charles joined, and I didn't know that Charles hadn't been a part of it for all of his life. But I will say this to you, and not in any, I'll just say it as a fact. I've never been a part of a church where young people were leaving. When I joined the North Philadelphia church, Charles, you remember, young people were coming. They were coming in droves. I mean,
what year was that?
And what about when they got in their 20s?
And was staying all day.
And staying all day. Yeah, we stayed
all day. And one of the things I distinctly,
70s.
Yeah, and one of the things I distinctly remember was we looked forward to Sabbath, hung around Sabbath afternoon.
Really look forward to AY.
Right. Look forward to AY. And then we even had some that kept running to the door to see if the sun set. Because the next thing they wanted to do was go bowling or go hang out at the pizza shop.
Yeah.
So it was a full day.
But it's a different time now. We have to acknowledge the fact
that true.
When I was a child, nobody had a cell phone that would allow them to be somewhere else while they were sitting right next to me. And the level of activities that are available. I mean, our young people have so many distractions, and young people are prone to distraction. And these are things that we have to acknowledge for what they are. I mean,
and we have to admit that they are smarter.
Yep.
And more sophisticated.
They have more information, that's for sure.
And they fact checking the pastor while he preaching there on the spot.
Yeah, well, when I got my smartphone, I was doing that.
But
some of them really are looking at videos. Truth be told,
but I sense that at times in our attempt to create a social setting, or in our attempt to try to cater to the very whimsical and ephemeral needs of young people, that we may take the church away from its mission, which is to make disciples of people, and to affirm those things that allow us to know that we are in Christ. And, every young person is not going to enjoy that. We recognize that. And the idea is to not try to water it down to make them happy with it. The idea is to love them and say, this is where we are. And
let me agree with you. Let me agree with you on this. The stats are the same, guys, throughout the decades. The stats are the same. The difference is that back then, those who were leaving never spoke about it.
Yeah, it wasn't as loud.
No, it wasn't as loud. Now they're talking about it, which should allow us to more, because Tally, I'm with you. And you're talking about 70s, 80s. We had Pathfinder clubs that were bursting at the seams, 100 and something kids. Right, you had Sabbath school they were double parked outside Sabbath school. Really?
Listen, I remember a Beta Youth Congress that I was involved in, part of the production team. And we had on Sabbath, if you can imagine this, 35,000 young people at the Georgia World Congress Center. In fact, the Congress Center said, They said, how many are you expecting on the weekend? We said, well, you need to put down more chairs because they're going to be rolling in here. And they were like, yeah, sure. We've seen youth programs here. We've had them here. We've never had. So what was funny was that the convention center didn't put those extra chairs down. And we warned them. We said on Sabbath, they're going to pack this exhibit hall.
Right.
And they were like, oh, yeah, well, seeing is believing. Well, guess what? Sabbath morning, 35,000 young people rolled into that exhibit center, and they couldn't put the chairs down fast enough.
Can I give you a quick survey for Beta? I'm the president of Beta. They don't want preaching on Sabbath. That's what we've gotten back. You know what they want to do in Orlando? Service. They want to go out. They want to clean somebody's house. They want to clean out a lot. They want to paint somebody. This is Sabbath. They want to paint somebody. They want to feed the homeless. They want to do all of these things. And they're not looking for the great Gamal Alexander to be up there for everybody to listen to him preach.
You're absolutely
They don't want that anymore.
Absolutely. Let me ask a question, GP.
Yeah.
I'm like you, Tally. I see your face. I'm like you.
Do you think having younger pastors in leadership will make a difference?
It depends on the context, because if you're placed in a context where they are resistant to change and you are just doing funerals every week until everyone is gone in the church, I don't know. It depends. But there is a thriving young adult community in Columbus, Ohio, and it's growing. They do service. They have a young adult pastor and a Gen Z associate pastor. So, maybe perhaps our conference should look in investing in some young adult or youth church plants that are youth led and youth run. But if we're just going to assume that having a young pastor on fire won't get discouraged while dealing with the old heads, I don't know how sustainable that is. We might get tired. We might leave.
If two things, and then I'll just shut up for the rest of the evening. Number
Dr.
one,
Kesselin, that's my girl. I love Dr. Cass.
Hey,
he's watching us.
Nice to know. But two things.
Don't listen to him, Dr. Cass.
You're there, yeah.
He's a hater. Don't listen to him.
But on the serious note, though, it worries me if our young people are saying what we want to do is go out and clean up lots and paint people's houses on Sabbath. Then it says that we have failed to help our young people understand what Sabbath is. Yeah, that's first. That's the first thing.
I'm agreeing with Tally.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But
wait, I don't unpack that about.
If the idea comes to a young person that what we want to do is go out and clean up a lot, paint a house. In other words, we want to go out and work on the Sabbath. We have failed to demonstrate what Sabbath is. No,
that's good work.
Tally, listen.
No, it is not good work. That's good work. Because that work can be done on Sunday or Friday or Thursday or Tuesday. We have failed to teach them what Sabbath is all about.
But no, they won't be in that area though.
Don't care.
Those other days they're coming in.
Still don't care. If young people, if their idea of Sabbath is going out and being really active and doing stuff, we have failed to live.
You're a Pharisee, Tally. You're a Pharisee.
Yeah, because Jesus did those.
Jesus did not paint anybody's house on Sabbath.
Jesus did good on the Sabbath, though.
He did good that came across him as essential for the moment that it appeared. If somebody was hungry right then he fed them on that Sabbath. He did not make arrangements to do work on Sabbath.
I disagree.
I don't care.
This is what happens in those boardrooms where the youth programs get stuck.
May I speak? My earplug.
What happens?
Go ahead, Marlena.
Can I say this real quick?
I forgot what the second point was.
If it's a ministry where I thought Tyler was going, he disappointed me, so I had to go against him again. I thought we were going to be on one accord, but anyway,
you know that's not going to happen.
Anyway, what I was trying to say, if my only disagreement with what Pat said, I would like to do both. I would like to have some type of spiritual, a sermonic thing that they could take for food and then go out and do that thing. Because what if you go to someone's house and they're a little elderly person and their steps, something broke down on their step that they can't even get in and out of the house. You're in the area for that time. You're like, I know how to fix that step real quick.
If a step breaks on set,
may I finish?
You cut right into what I was saying, but go ahead.
Back again.
But wait a minute. So this is what I'm saying.
This is why I say we should have commercials.
But listen to my point. I'm going to shut up.
Okay.
I'm
Let her
just
talk.
saying, if they're out there and they're saying, well, this, I found out as I was going door to door, taking care, just finding out what, this person needs. And they found out that the step is broken and you're only in this area for 2-3 days because of a convention. And you're like, hey, let's get some resources, fix that step. That cannot be against God.
That is
be.
such a non sequitur that it almost makes it too easy for me to respond to. Number one,
No.
If you're planning an event and you know about the broken step, you didn't just find out about it on the Sabbath that you got there. I mean, what I am talking about is planning to do work on Sabbath.
I'm going to make a point. I'm going to make a point right here.
Mm.
This is why our young people leave. Not what you said, Tally, and not what you. No, hold on.
It
not
is
what you said, Marlena. Hold on. Listen. Let me go on brag mode here. I'm the professional in here.
All right.
You used to be. You're
I-
52 now.
I deal with young people over the past 10 years, and I know my shortcomings. And I work, for example, right now with a kid named Carson Rogers coming out of Central States. And I literally do things old school, right? Those young guys that's coming in right now, it's a little pinch for me. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a little pinch for me to have these 7 new young people come in and say, Pat, that's old. Why don't you run it this way? I feel a little pinch for it, but I got to listen to them because they know the lay of the land right now. I might have said that a little bit right wing of Tally and Marlena. Service entity is what they're looking for. Togetherness is what they're looking for. Hanging out together, whether it means for them to go from, and you're right, Tally, we would not see a step there. We would already plan where we're going and everything will be planned. But the argument that we're having out of the 6 of us right now is the reason why the young people cannot move ahead.
I want to be clear as to why I said what I said.
Mm-hmm.
The point that I
because
made.
you 70. You 70.
The point that I made was not that we should not fix someone's steps on the Sabbath, or we shouldn't feed somebody on the Sabbath, or that we shouldn't paint somebody's house on the Sabbath. The point that I made is if our young people are saying, this is what we want to plan to do on Sabbath, then we have failed to teach them what Sabbath is.
I agree with that.
The emphasis is on fail to teach them what Sabbath is.
I agree.
And Sabbath, and now remember, when God gave Adam and Eve Sabbath, it wasn't because they were tired. They hadn't done anything. It wasn't because that he wanted to see if they knew math, because his 7th day was their first day. It was because God wanted to emphasize to his creatures that he wanted them to come aside and to celebrate the fact that their preparation and their security is based not on what they accomplish or do, but based on what he has already done for them. Sabbath becomes a reminder that it is not my doing, achieving, acquiring, or accomplishing that makes me secure. It is what God has done for me. It is celebrating the doing of God in the absence of my activity so that I might recognize that my success in life isn't based on what I do or cannot do. That is what Sabbath celebration is about. And if we have failed to teach that to our young people, that's why they're saying, let's go out and paint somebody's house. That's all I'm saying.
Can I say this too? Because I see comments
know.
where, we can fix steps on another day. This is what I'm saying, because that's why Jesus got in trouble with the Pharisees, because he was around healing. He wasn't sitting just kicking it at Mary Martha's house all the time. They were walking around taking care of the needs of the people, which was sinful to the Pharisees at that time that Jesus was going around. You can shake your head all you want, dude. I know the scriptures too. All right. But what I'm trying to say is Pat was saying, like the youth, like when you're having the youth grand, what do you call it? The grand federation or whatever,
Youth Congress,
right?
Youth Congress.
Youth Congress. That's it. That's it. So Youth Congress is just 2-3 days max, right? So they're saying, we're coming into town. Let's bless people while we're there. I understand that. And the reason I gave the question about the steps, because I know someone who did that. They were finding out, what were the issues of, what was going on in their community, and somebody needed help with their steps because I think they had to go to the doctor. A little elderly person needed some help, and so they went back and took care of that thing because there was a need. My point is, yes, Sabbath is a day of rest. Sabbath is a day we commune with God, but there are times when the people have a need, and I'm saying, I could really do this on Sunday, right? But if the person needs a need right there, you take care of that. So I just wanted to say that to Tally because, there's some things that God will cause us to do that it might not be right for you, but it's a thing between you and God.
Yeah. I think that we're definitely going to have a part two.
Part
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
As a millennial, I'm getting tired of this conversation. So I'm getting ready to pass it back to Madame Producer. And if we choose to do a part 2, we'll talk about it some more.
Well, wait a minute. Can't you give a final statement there, Mr. Give us a final statement.
He did give a final statement.
He said he's tired.
His final statement is he's tired of talking.
And here's the thing. Funny as we did this, I'm the youth director. We asked GP because of where he is at his age, and
he used to be young. Yeah.
I'm not young anymore.
No, and he's one of our young pastors listen. If you look at what people are saying in the chat, what we are saying in the Brady Bunch, Marlena, it's going to take some time to sit down and figure out how to pivot. That's really the key there. How do we make our moves? How do we change? How do we move? And if we don't sit down and have that conversation, I'm sorry. So I'm at the Haitian Federation. Hold on, producer. I see you. Guy gets up and we all know him, Mike. His name is Mike. I'll call him out because he was fighting for change and the sun started to set, right? Tally, you're not hearing me. I don't know who's texting you over there. Listen to what I'm saying. I don't know her name that's texting you. Listen to what I'm saying.
Oh,
listen. When the sun was setting, he was doing all the argument of getting away from the old stuff. His name is Mike, is Nadej's husband. And then when the sun started to set, he took out his phone. He says, "Hey, we got to stop right here. And we have to sing like Day is Dying in the West." I turned to him and I was like, listen to this. We were just fighting for all this new stuff or what we need to do. And he went right back to old style for culture, etc., and said,
closing the Sabbath.
We got to close the Sabbath. We can't be on the edges of the Sabbath doing this. And he laughed at it. He smiled at it because he recognized that there's some things we just can't get out of us, but we still have to do something in order for our young people.
Yeah. And my question is, and we can discuss this next week, where's the compromise? Because to me, there's so
that's a bad word, Tasha, you just used.
Polarizing of we shouldn't and we should leaves us stuck and nothing is getting done. And that's not what we want. So at some point, we have to find something that works.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to start the conversation, not each person arguing their side, but okay, where can we meet in the middle? That doesn't happen enough, especially and our young people are worth it. They deserve for that discussion to be hashed out and there to be a plan. Don't let it get stuck in the conversation. And so we'll try to continue this next week. I saw a suggestion.
If I'm driving down the street and I get a flat tire, I don't want Tally anywhere near me.
I will change your tire on Saturday. I will change your tire on Saturday.
I'm kidding, Tally. I'm just teasing.
But if you have a flat tire on Thursday, you say, why don't we bring the young people out to change my tire on Sabbath? I will tell you that is not the purpose of Sabbath. Why don't we come and meet you Friday morning?
I got
you.
I'm teasing.
And that's why you have AAA.
Here's the thing. I'm in the middle now of two different groups. I'm in the middle of a group of people who are progressive and who want to do things that are kind of beyond tradition for the sake of winning people, and the other group, the Pharisaical group, who wants, 7 days of Sabbath, the Lord thy God, thou shalt not do anything. I ain't about them either. I am simply saying that there's a purpose that we need to teach our young people so that they can understand that Sabbath isn't simply about doing good math better than your Baptist friends. and it is not measured by what you stop doing.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. That if we are planning to do things that the Sabbath was not designed for, then we are failing our young people. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we got it.
For those of you that have flat tires on Sabbath, there's AAA.
Yeah.
So you get AAA to come and fix your tire, and then you're still breaking the Sabbath.
I was about to say,
because
you're still
AAA
hiring
is the
someone.
stranger within thine gates. Okay, there we go. You can close the show.
Wow.
That's
Your
fair.
house is on
That's
fire. You
fair.
call the fire department and say, "Happy Sabbath. We will not be
No,
there
you
until
get
sunset."
young people with buckets of water.
You
and
put that
count them
fire
out
out
one by one.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do.
Yes. Okay. And I just wanted to highlight the chat this evening.
Yeah.
Woo!
On
You guys
fire.
are spitting some fire. I love it. I wish I could put up every comment and we could discuss each and every one, but we're going to use some of this as our fuel for part 2 next week. So come
Lordy.
on back so we can hash out some of your comments. I love it. I love this engagement from you all, and we're going to read that. So go back, guys, and read the comments on YouTube and Facebook because we're getting them from both sides. They're really good.
Rodney, you saw Rodney's?
That's what Rodney.
Sally back.
Don't
I'm
call him
observing
Tab.
that.
That's right. Don't call him Rod, because you be out there. You be out back, buddy.
First, I'm going to ask you, Rodney, where you going?
Yes. Oh, and I think Anthony Daniels had mentioned too, bring some young adults into the conversation
let's
next
do it.
week, and we
Let's
had
do
talked
it.
about that.
We had
We
planned
did.
that.
So we
did.
can hear from them.
But some of you are young adults on the line, right? It's
Yes,
30,
yeah,
40
I'm reading up
people on
there.
the line.
On this
Gen Z,
line,
man.
these folks are archaic.
Yeah.
That's how I'm gonna introduce the crew next week. The archaic crew and all the most archaic crew.
Well, don't be surprised if we have tire commercials next week.
Now a word from our sponsor, Goodyear.
And you're bringing some youth. Okay,
That's good.
great. Bring the youth.
That's the Baltimore area, Illinois.
Yeah, 'cause we can have some here online, but we can also have some active in the chat sharing their opinions. Like we need as many people weighing in so we can come up with solutions. This is important
great.
enough.
This is
Yeah,
great.
this is important enough.
Thank you, GP, for raising the questions.
Hey, I tried. I had a wonderful time with you all, and I'm looking forward to part 2. And we're going to have this conversation again because we really do care, and we really want to help others
Amen.
navigate these times.
Okay. And I just want to put it out there. If you all have some young people that you know have left the church and maybe want to weigh in on this conversation, email me, upset@aecsda.com. We want to see if we can get as many varied opinions from as many different people as possible on this topic. Those who have left and have given reasons why. Let me know. Email us at upset@aecsda.com if you know someone that might want to weigh in on this panel. We'd love to hear from them. Also, we have our UpSet birthday coming at the end of February 26th. We hope to launch our UpSet merch, which will be designed to give back to causes that are important to all of you.
Rodney, boy, Rodney.
Tire
I'm
sale.
looking at chat here.
He said he want
They
the
want
upset
the
swag.
So the swag is coming, and we're excited about that because we want to use that to meet needs, real needs. So we'll be sharing more. But anyway, I feel like this is such a good discussion. I don't even want to do all my announcements tonight. But
So
just
Benjamin
reach out
got to
to
come
us.
back. Don't let Benjamin know he's got to come back because he started this foolishness. So we going with him.
Yes. Come back. Come back.
Good
Everybody
things
that's here this Sunday, come back next Sunday because we need that same fire in the chat. That was some good stuff.
And we like
Yeah.
the challenges. I mean, you don't have to agree with us. We like the challenges.
Yeah,
And
you
so,
see, we don't
Ben,
always
I know,
agree with each other.
right? I know Ben kept saying, "I'm going to shut up." Don't shut up, Ben.
No,
You
don't
keep
shut up.
talking.
Ah,
No.
Because the step in front of Tally's house is broken right now.
Right.
But he doesn't need to get out.
No.
I'm not going out
His own
anywhere
step.
until Friday night. So just if you can fix it on Sabbath for me, I'll be okay.
Missed
All
the
Well,
right.
whole
we're
point.
rapidly moving from the Brady Bunch to the secret squares.
But yeah,
gosh.
thanks again, guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to share this conversation even after we end with others, so we can keep this dialogue going and hopefully come up with some solution. And this is what we want. I'm glad you said this. She said my brain was stirred. That's what we're about. Upset. You're trying to upset how we're thinking and moving forward.
Go ahead, Tally.
I'm glad to hear that, Sister Florence, because there are some on the lines whose brains were scrambled. So,
Like Tally.
Oh my God.
Okay,
I think you better cue that. I think you better cue that theme
this is where
song.
we get silly, but thank you guys for tuning in. If it's Sunday, it's Upset. So we'll see you back here Sunday, 6 p.m., same place, same time. Take care, everybody.
Peace.
Have
Yes,
a
everybody.
wonderful week. Have a blessed week.